Welcome, friends. Good evening. Thank you so much, those of you who are joining me tonight on a Friday night after an exhausting week. We had our state legislature discussing and debating um, cannabis legalization and economic development programs and um, the decisions on what's going to happen to our state's largest healthcare insurance provider. We have Congress still debating another economic stimulus package. We have had an exhausting week this week for sure, and tonight, Friday night, you have decided to join me and listen to me talk about why I'm running for county clerk, and I want to thank you for that. Um, on a Friday night when you could be doing anything else, spending time with your family, watching the season finale of The Mandalorian, playing Cyberpunk 2077, you've chosen to spend some time with me, and I want to thank you. So, let me introduce myself. My name is Mico Lucide. I'm going to be doing my best to keep tabs on the comments as they come in, so forgive me if I miss anything. It's a couple of balls in the air to juggle doing one of these. My name is Mico Lucide. I know it's a funky last name. You can just call me Mico. And I'm 29 years old. I'm a Democrat. I'm a progressive. I work in IT. I'm a Stockton University graduate with a degree in political science, concentrating in pre-law. Very proud of my time at Stockton. I was very active. I'm running for county clerk. A lot of people probably don't know what county clerks do. The county clerk is in charge of administering our election systems, administering our elections. It is an important role. They also oversee some other things, business licensing, passports, etc. But one of the really important things that they do is the administering of elections. So, before we get into all of that, let me talk a little bit about myself. I grew up in Egg Harbor Township, spent my formative years there until I was around 18 years old. I went through the EHT school system, got a fantastic education through the EHT school system. I'm still close with some of my teachers from high school. I adore them, and I'm thankful for everything that they've taught me. From there, I went to Stockton University, where I really became active and became an advocate for my fellow students. Really, what happened during my college years transformed me. Uh, in my sophomore year, my mother had a massive stroke. It was just my mom and I living together, and she had a serious stroke. She had to go into a nursing home. I could not care for her on my own. I could not afford the apartment that we were living in. She's still alive. She is still cognitive, and I still care for her. Um, but it was a serious struggle. And I was lucky enough to um, have made a lot of connections while I was at Stockton, to have been very active, and to have known how to navigate the various opportunities that existed at Stockton, to take out extra student loans to live on campus, and to get a summer and winter job on campus so that I could still have a roof over my head after we lost the apartment that we were living in. It was, I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate that I had that information, but not everyone does. Through my time at Stockton, I knew several other students who suffered, similar issues. They ended up homeless. They ended up rejected from their family, and I just sort of stepped into that role. It was important to me to make sure that they had someone they felt like they could fall back on, and had someone who could help them along the way to navigate these systems that, were there to help them, but weren't so obvious. Uh, it's always been something frustrating to me that there are these systems in place that are devoted to helping people, devoted to making sure that people have what they need, and yet we as a society find ways to make them obscure, find ways to hide them, find ways to make it difficult to navigate them. And people end up losing out on a lot of opportunities. People end up losing out on things that could literally, save their lives, save, their place to live. You know, that was really what changed me. Um, Caring for my mother throughout my college career and navigating, trying to stay afloat, trying to make ends meet while having, someone that I needed to care for, while being a student, while being an employee, it was a lot. It was a lot. And people have to go through that every day. People other than me who weren't as lucky, who didn't have the same privileges that I had, who didn't have the same resources that I knew that I had access to, who didn't know about those resources. And so I put myself in a position to help people as much as I could, whether it was my fellow friends at Stockton University, whether it was people that I knew who were going through a rough time outside of the institution, who, didn't know how to apply for Medicaid, who didn't know how to apply for food stamps. I wanted to make sure that it doesn't matter whether I know you or not. It doesn't matter whether I like you or not. If you are hungry, if you are hurting, you need help and I want to help. That's always been my mindset. You know, these things that people go through, it's painful, it's difficult. And the reason that made such an impact on me, aside from the fact that I was going through it myself, was because seeing how much little things like advice can impact a person and can really set them on a path to succeed and to thrive. It just felt so good to know that another person was able to rest easy at night through just a little bit of help that I could provide. You know, these things are related, I promise. So as I'm talking about these things, these things that people go through, I'm thinking about all of the things that we deal with in society, in our government, that are difficult to navigate. A lot of people lose trust in the government, they'll lose faith, they'll lose hope, and that's heartbreaking to me. A lot of times that happens because people feel like their voice is never heard. Their voice, their vote, their calls to their assembly person, their senator, their congress people, they feel like they aren't heard. And I feel like it starts with their vote. I can't tell you how many people, my age especially, who have told me that they feel like their vote doesn't matter, that it's just one vote. Well, one vote does matter. Your vote does matter. And the reason that I think a lot of people shy away from the idea of being so participatory in our democracy is they don't see it reflected in our government. The things that they're asking for, the things that they're pushing for, the things that they're hoping for. We see community organizations gather together, fight together to make sure that we have successes and we don't always see them succeed. And it's painful and it's frustrating and it makes people lose hope sometimes. But ultimately, we are the only advocates we have for ourselves. And we need to be that strong voice for each other and for our interests and for society's interests. I think that our vote has a lot more power than we give it credit for. And I think that some of the reason that we lose faith in our elections is because our elections are a bit skewed. We have a ballot here in New Jersey that is unique only to New Jersey. New Jersey is the only state in the United States that has this county line ballot. And that means that in these primaries, we have one column that is full from top to bottom, and we have an incomplete spreadsheet for the rest of that ballot. Why does that matter? Well, the reason that matters is because one person gets to decide who appears in that full column right there. And that full column is the one that most often ends up getting voted for, because you trust something that looks like it's solid and thought out and complete. You don't citizens don't as much trust, the scattered names out here who aren't bracketed with people who don't show up in the same column, who are incomplete columns. And so this ballot design is intentional. It puts power in that one person's hand, the county chair's hand, to put that full column in that first column on the ballot to ensure that those are the people who end up getting the nomination for that given political party. So that takes power out of the voters' hands, because it puts a lot of responsibility on the voters to look into the candidates to make sure that they're picking the right people, and people get uncomfortable voting outside of that line because it feels like, well, am I really going to vote for the person in column D or column F? No one else is going to really vote for them. Is there really a point to doing this? And it's that defeatism that puts us in a position where we are giving away our power and giving away our voice. So, yes, one of the big things that I want to do as county clerk is to change the ballot design that we have to one that makes sense. It's called the office block ballot. Instead of having an incomplete spreadsheet, we would have clear, concise lists. Everyone running for this office is right here. Everyone running for this office is right here. It's not going to be split apart. It's not going to have empty spaces. It's not going to push people off of the edge of the page or into a different row just because there are so many people running in a specific race. It just makes sense, and it's fair. It gives candidates an opportunity to be seen by the voters. And for that matter, it's the same ballot that the rest of the country uses. There's a reason they use it. It makes sense. And it goes deeper than that. It's not just about the ballot. It's also about how much trust we have in our government, how much trust we have in our vote. We all saw what happened after this year's presidential election. Division was intentionally sown. Beyond that, doubt was sown. People don't know what happens to their vote once it leaves their hands, once they leave that ballot box. They don't know what happens to that vote. And that's a big concern for me. It's not just, just trust in the system and it'll all work itself out. We need to know. And we need a county clerk who is willing to go out into the community and teach people about what happens to their vote. Teach people about what happens in our election system on election day, after election day, as the votes are being counted. What the heck a provisional ballot is. I remember my first time voting by provisional ballot, I freaked out. I was told by someone that I knew who wasn't necessarily the most informed that, if you vote by provisional ballot, you have to contact the office to find out if your vote was counted. So I immediately got terrified that my vote was not going to count, because I was told, you have to check up on it. And when it came down to it, I should have just trusted that system. If I had been informed about the system, I would have known that ballot, that provisional ballot, is going to be counted. It's going to be counted unless you have voted a second time. That's just the way that it is. Throughout the country, we saw people fighting provisional ballots, fighting this idea that, people were voting 2, 3, 4 times. It was ridiculous. We all know that it was ridiculous. We need to have faith in our election system to be able to have faith in our government. If we don't trust that our vote matters and that our vote is counted, how can we trust the people who are in office? My goal, my sincere goal, is not just to put more power in the citizens' hands through a better ballot, but to educate our citizens, to make sure that they understand our election system, to make sure that they understand how votes get processed, to make sure that they feel like they can trust our elections and therefore trust those that we elect. It's so important right now, especially as more division gets sown, as more friction occurs between political parties, between independents, and this frustration that we're all feeling right now, this frustration that we've felt for years, we can fix it. We can fix it if we work hard and if we have people who care in positions of power to do something about it. So, if I am blessed enough to be chosen by the people to be the county clerk of Atlantic County, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get a ballot that makes sense. That's clear. You're going to get a ballot that organizes people by the office they are running for, that is not an incomplete spreadsheet that pushes people all over the place with empty spots all over. You're not going to get that. You're going to get lists. I'm a dork. I'm a geek. I like Excel spreadsheets, but I like lists that are complete. I like to be able to know who I'm voting for and not have to look all over this huge, expansive piece of paper to figure out who's running with who and all of that sort of stuff. You're going to get a sensible ballot. You're going to get a county clerk who, after every election, takes a look at the community voter turnout and finds the lowest turnout and goes to those communities to educate the people about the election system, to educate the people about what happens to their vote once they have cast it, and to do outreach to areas of that community where there may be more non-voters than in other areas. It's important to me to revitalize our democracy. We should never have an election that sees voter turnout as low as 34%. It's not just depressing, it's giving up as a society, as a voting population. We can't have that anymore, and I don't want to see that happen anymore. In addition to going out into communities with low voter turnout, I want to reach out to high schools. I want to see high school seniors, and I want to tell them about how much their vote matters and how much their participation in our elections as brand new voters can make a difference in their community. I'm tired of people giving up their power as soon as they get access to that power. When I was young, I immediately started voting as soon as I was able to. Once I realized how much power that really gave me. And I knew so many people at that age who couldn't be bothered. They felt like it was a waste of their time. They felt like it wasn't as important as it was. And we need to reinstill that sense of civic responsibility among our young people. In addition to that, I want to make sure that I, as county clerk, take part in nationalization classes to educate immigrants who will become citizens, voting citizens, about our election system and how they can participate in it. We are lucky in Atlantic County to have so many different organizations who do a lot of activity for our communities, whether it is food drives, whether it is advocacy work, whether it is connecting them with resources that they need, such as legal resources or, as I said, food banks or health services that they would not otherwise have access to. We are lucky to have these organizations. And it shouldn't fall all on them. These organizations do so much hard work, and they deserve so much praise and appreciation for everything that they do. But our government can do better too. I want to have a county clerk's office that participates in our communities as much as our community organizations participate in our communities. We deserve that as voters. We deserve a government that cares. We deserve a government that reaches out to us and not just one that waits around until we have something to complain about or have something that we want to look into. We should be proactive and not just reactive. And even then, we're lucky if government is reactive. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to some government agencies and just never heard a response for a few months. And I think that's another thing that is sort of endemic of the issues that we're running into as a society. When you have something like the county line ballot, when you have something that puts so much power in incumbency and the county chair's hands, it makes our elected representatives less interested in being responsive to our voters because they know that they have something so powerful as the county line, which, according to New Jersey policy perspective, can come with a swing of votes up to 50%. 50%. It can change an entire election just to have the county line. We have elected officials who take it for granted, and I don't want them to do that anymore. I want them to be responsive to our community. They need to be. Our voters, again, deserve it. Beyond that, we also need to realize the importance of having these elected representatives being responsive to the people by not giving them that opportunity to ignore us anymore. The power of the line is something that is it almost makes one want to be defeated. It almost makes one feel defeated from the get-go. We can fix that with a better ballot. This system that we're dealing with is special to New Jersey, and New Jersey has a very interesting history when it comes to politics that I won't get into right now. But we owe our voters better. In the state of New Jersey, there are 2 counties, Salem and Sussex, that have gotten rid of the county line. Now, when you get rid of the county line, in addition to candidates no longer having the power that comes along with the county line, they are no longer responsive only to the people who can get them that county line, those county party chairs and whoever they are responsive to. Usually donors, usually an especially powerful donor. I think a lot of us know the name George Norcross. You know, these things that I'm talking about, I know it gets into the nitty-gritty of elections and New Jersey politics in general, and it gets grimy. That's politics. We all hate it, and I want to fix it. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I'm trying to. My goal as county clerk is to unmuck some of the crap that we're dealing with our politics, and put power in the voters' hands, put the voice back in our voters' mouths. You know, there's a lot that we can do as a society. There's a lot that our government can do that can better the lives of our voters, better the lives of our communities in general. The county clerk's office has so much opportunity to do more. And as long as I've been alive, I've never seen them do more than the bare minimum. So if you as voters, and in particular you as Democrats, the Democrats out there, you need to understand something. I'm running in the Democratic primary. At the moment, technically, I am the only candidate who has announced. I announced rather early, but I'm sure that there will be other people running in this Democratic primary. I need your votes if you want to see this change happen, if you want to have a better ballot, if you want to have a county clerk's office that does more, that educates people. We have a society that has made civic education a second thought, a third thought, an afterthought, not a thought at all. The county clerk's office can do outreach, can do more. If you want to see a government that is responsive, it starts with the elections, and it starts with the county clerk's office. The county clerk's office can make this difference. This office is so important to the future of not just the progressive movement that I am a part of, but also the movement of having the people's voices heard again. It's been too long, especially here in New Jersey, since voters have felt like our elections and our government can be trusted and have our best interests at heart. I think we can all agree on that. Whether Democrat, progressive, Republican, conservative, third party, independent, we all know that our government can do better by us and for us. One more thing I want to say about the county line. Here in Atlantic County, we had something interesting happen this past primary, in the Democratic primary. The Senate line, the Senate row in column A, which was the county line, was blank because Cory Booker decided to run with Bridget Callahan Harrison in column C, and Larry Hamm did not get the endorsement of the Atlantic County Democratic Party and therefore the blessing of the chair of the Atlantic County Democratic Party. And as a result, they left that line blank, that one section in for U.S. Senate in column A. What does that mean? Well, it means that 19%, almost 20%, almost 1/5 of the voters in the Democratic primary left that race blank on their ballots. 19% of people in the Democratic primary were disenfranchised themselves because they didn't know about this ballot system by not voting in that race. They didn't vote. It's called an undervote when you skip an office that you are voting for. So we ended up with almost 1/5 of the Democratic voters not even voting for someone for Senate. That's what the county line can do. It can end up disenfranchising people. In Mercer County, just a few counties up from us, they had two people on the same line. They had two candidates for Congress in column A, and as a result, it was a 32%, I think, a 32% overvote because people voted for both candidates by accident. You won't have that with a better ballot, the ballot of an office block style ballot, which is what I'm hoping that the voters will allow me to give them if I am blessed enough again to be elected county clerk. So I'm going to check out these comments, see if there are any questions. I want to thank everybody for their support so far. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the comments now that I'm actually looking at them. I want to give a shout out to a couple of people. Thank you so much to everybody who is giving some positive shout outs. Melanie, Angela, Christian, Shane, Trisha, one of my fellow co-workers, fellow Stockton grad. Congrats on finishing your master's program. Joshua, Jackie, thank you all so much for your support. I think that what we're doing is so important. Our politicians are too comfortable. Our incumbents are too comfortable. And we saw this week, as they voted through a cannabis legalization system that ignores social justice, when they voted through an economic development program that puts billions of dollars into massive corporations that already have plenty of money to do whatever they want to with. We already have a government that is not listening to the will of the people, not listening to these wonderful community organizations that we have who are active and fighting on our behalf to make sure that our government is representing us well and representing our best interests. We need to fight back as a community. We need to have better ballots. We need to have a government that cares, that is responsive. We need to have more people like Karen Fitzpatrick, people who listen. People in our government who are there to be the megaphone for the voices of the people in our community. I hope to be that. I hope to give you guys back your own megaphone with your vote, with a better ballot, and with the education that we need as a community to fully grasp the value that our vote has, the power that our voice has, and the way that our system works. Because if you don't know how the system works, you're bound to get caught up in the clogged up in the cogs. This machine that we're dealing with, this system that we're dealing with, we need to build a better one. We need to build a better one. It starts with empowering our vote. It starts with having a better ballot. I know I'm getting very repetitive at this point, but it's true. These are the things that we need to fight for. These are the things that I'm fighting for. I hope that in listening to me tonight, you've learned a bit about me. You've felt that I'm trustworthy, felt that the things that I'm fighting for, the things that you are looking for in someone. And I hope that we can work together and make these changes happen. Because I don't know about you, but I'm tired of the status quo. I'm tired of things continuing to happen and continuing to be ignored by elected officials, continuing to be ignored by the powers that be, when we know better and we can do better and our government can do better. So if you want to help out the campaign, visit my campaign website, lucideforclerk.com, LUCIDEFORCLERK.com. Sign up to get involved. Join one of our teams. Ground team, phone team, anything. We could really use some donations. It's very early. Early donations are the most important, because when it comes down to it, these things unfortunately cost money. It's going to cost money to have mailers. It's going to cost money to have phone banking lists. It's going to cost money to cover the cost of volunteers. I'm not one of those people who's just going to use people who want to help out my campaign. I want to make sure that if you are doing work for me, you are paid for your labor. So donate if you can. You can donate straight from my website. You can donate from my Facebook page. I have a link up on my Facebook page. Scroll down and join the team. Join the effort. Let's make this happen. Let's fight. We can win this. With your help, all of us together. This is our fight, and we're going to win it. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful and safe weekend. Happy holidays. Be well and do good. Farewell.